Hey guys, I'm Brandon.
I'm Brigitte.
This is part of our archive of content from our other channel, and if you're looking for it, it's now called
Brigitte Beckley. We'll have new content for you guys soon, but let's just get into the video.
And today we're going to talk about 7 lessons we've learned in 7 years of marriage. Number 1 is to embrace your differences. So if you have watched our channel at all, you know that we are complete opposites. Total
very
and complete.
different.
Yes. And in the beginning, I definitely was trying to unconsciously make him more like me. So instead of embracing...
Skinny and quiet?
No.
Oh.
Instead of embracing that he did things differently and thought differently, I tried to make him like me, and I got so annoyed when he wasn't because he's a different person. And I think that if you learn to appreciate and value the ways that you're different, you can have a more rich and fuller relationship because you bring a perspective that I don't. And so there's so much that I can learn from that.
And it works both ways. I'm way more of an aggressive person about life in general. I want to go and accomplish outside the house, and she wants to be in the house. I want to have new experiences. And she is more sedate and calm. But it's not that she needs to be more like me either. It's that we're just better together. We have all of the strengths together. It's just, are we able to recognize and appreciate that those differences are actually strengths?
There's definitely a balance with us being so different. So I'm introverted and I just want to stay in the house all day, but because he's extroverted, we actually go out and have friends.
Yeah.
But we aren't out all the time to the point where we don't have a stability of being home, especially with kids now, and being able to regroup and like plan for our week and be able to budget and have meal plans, and so there's definitely this sweet spot where we use our strengths because we're different. And I think when we learn to embrace our differences, that's where you get whatever, like that's the sweet spot.
Because of you and your strengths, we have a home that's a great place to come back to. It's a place of refuge, a place you want to go back to and rest and be restored, as opposed to just a place to sleep and throw your stuff down and leave, which is what I would do. So your strengths help a lot there.
So embrace your differences.
Boom. Hey, we're back home because you got sick.
Yeah.
That face. But we're back to talking about the 7 things we've learned in 7 years of marriage, and number 2 is I am responsible for me. I'm not responsible for her. What that means is that we are all responsible for our own roles in marriage. I'm not responsible to hold her accountable for how she carries out being a wife, and she's not responsible to hold me accountable for how I act as a husband. When the Bible talks about how my job is to love her as Christ loves the church, that's on me. I'm not supposed to worry about how she does in submitting as unto the Lord, which is a whole other thing we can get into.
Yeah, I mean, I read this line from a book once, and it was, even if you're only 2% responsible, you're 100% responsible for the 2%.
Yeah.
So just owning where you mess up and, acting in humility and not trying to fix or change the other person before you are taking care of yourself and being responsible for, so how I'm responding to you and how I talk to you and how I act, like I'm responsible for that. I can always change that. And so not just automatically coming at you with, hey, you need to do this.
Yeah, because you can always find a reason to act selfishly or say, oh, well, they've been treating me this way or they've been acting unlovingly. I remember early in our marriage where I would feel like you were acting a certain way or acting selfishly, and it made me not want to love you. But whether or not you were on board with me with something or that I felt like you were communicating well, my responsibility was still to love her no matter what. I am accountable to God for how I treat her, not how she treats me. And I think if we all remember we are responsible for ourselves in marriage, we do a lot better.
The third lesson that we've learned in marriage, and this is not in any particular order, is that it's necessary to speak their language.
Yeah.
So We got this idea from a book called The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. We can link it down below. But essentially, there are 5 ways that people feel loved. And yours would be verbal affirmation.
Yeah, words of affirmation. And the idea is not so much like you don't express love, but it's that everybody expresses it or receives it in different ways. So we learned early on that we have completely different love languages.
Right. So I feel more loved when you spend quality time with me and you're present and you're not on your phone and that you're not distracted. But you feel more loved when I use words to tell you that I like what you're doing or I like how you look.
My language is words. Isn't that weird?
So it's the idea that if he was speaking Spanish to me all day long and I don't speak Spanish, I would be like, I don't understand. Like, we would have no communication. Very little, anyways. Not effective communication.
Yeah.
And it's the same with love languages.
Yeah, because I could be telling her something wonderful about how much I love her in Spanish or French or German or Mandarin. It wouldn't matter if she doesn't understand it. My intentions may be awesome, and your intentions might be great, but it doesn't help at all for the other person to receive the love. So I've got to like spend time with her, not on my phone, not doing other things, and this means that I've got to adjust some of the ways that I behave. This is not a natural language for me, but if I'm in another country and I want something to eat, I've got to kind of speak the language. And in the same way, we brought 2 lives together that were completely different and have different languages, and we've got to learn to speak each other's language.
And speak it fluently.
Yeah, it's a lifelong practice. Yeah.
Just like any language. Like, I don't practice the French that I learned in high school, so I'm not fluent in it. I really could barely get by. And so if I had practiced it, I would have. And so it's a constant practice for the love languages.
So speak their language. Number 4 is to hug the cactus. Hugging the cactus is all about loving your spouse when they don't seem lovable or even like they're inviting affection at all.
Yeah, so sometimes I just shut down, and in that moment, I just need someone, I just need him to come and hug me to break that barrier that I'm trying to keep in between us, and just something about that physical touch just cuts it.
Yeah, it seems like when your spouse is resisting, when they don't seem like they want your affection, it seems like the last thing in the world you'd want to do is to run up and hug them. But oftentimes that's the thing that needs to be done. And it won't result instantly with, oh, I'm so glad you're here and thank you for the affection. But I think we both have learned to practice this a little better. And the times when they seem to want affection the most is the times you gotta go give it, not expecting anything in return. Because it's not about what they give back to you, it's just about that you're willing to give to them, and they know they don't seem very lovable. But giving them that affection, even in that moment, I think makes a big difference.
Yeah, and I think that there's instances where I don't want to be hugged by you, or I don't want to go hug you. It's a sign that there's something going on and that there's some kind of disconnect and we need to fix it.
Yeah. So, number 4 is hug the cactus.
This is great lighting out here.
I know.
It looks so beautiful.
You always look beautiful.
Ow! The 5th lesson that we've learned is don't confuse passiveness for peacemaking.
Yeah, different things.
Learn to recognize the seed of bitterness or resentment before it actually grows.
Yeah.
So if something that he does really irritates you, don't let it continue to fester, like leaving rotten fruit out, and it just sits there
and then you get flies. If you don't want flies, don't leave out the fruit.
Yeah. So learn to recognize it and bring it to the forefront, because if I don't address something because I think I'm being peaceful about it by just not talking about it, then it's gonna grow into something that's ugly. So I need to bring it to the forefront so we can talk about it and confront the issue in a loving way and not let it become something that divides us.
And that's the key too, is doing it in a loving way, because we both had things in 7 years that we just didn't mention and we didn't realize were big deals, but then months or even years later in some cases, it'll come out and we realize, wow, I had no idea this was a problem. So don't let it sit, don't confuse passiveness with peacemaking. Number 6 is that offense gives options, but response dictates direction. This means that you know, either one of us might do something to upset the other, or we might just have something going on in our day that is just plain upsetting, or we might have actually hurt each other. But when we do that, what it does is it creates a fork in the road. See, our offenses, the things that offend us, give us an option. We can choose path A or B. And that sounds super hard, but it's true. Because most of the time, it's our response to things that causes the issue more than the issue itself. If I get corrected for something at work, the way I respond to that can be teachable, or the way I respond to that can be defensive and upset and can cost me my job. In the same way, our responses can cost us strife in marriage. If she brings something up to me that is upsetting to her, that's bothering her, and I think she's way out of line, maybe she is, maybe she's being selfish. Probably not, because you're amazing, obviously. But my response to that is where the gold is.
And let me tell you, this is hard, especially if you are more of an emotional person. You know, I'm not going to pinpoint it to a man versus a woman thing, but you know, I have taken a few personality tests and I'm very much a feeler, so I go by emotion. And so I may feel very strongly to respond a certain way, and it's been a challenge and a learning experience to recognize that in my brain and then say, okay, I don't have to respond this way. I can change my response even though I'm not feeling like that, you know, giving grace and, you know, not reacting in anger. And so it's definitely one that I feel like I will be working on more and more, and something I have to practice because it's not easy for me. But I think that when I am slower to respond on my initial emotion, that the conversation and the future of that situation, it definitely has a better outcome.
Yeah, so remember, offense is options, but response dictates direction.
The seventh lesson that we've learned in our 7 years of marriage is that being matters more than doing. So who I'm becoming through all of life and all the challenges and all the ups and downs matters more than just doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Or saying the right thing, or
or what you do, or how well you do.
Yeah. And so I don't want to just love you in the way that it's supposed to be, but I want to become the person that wants to love you in the ways that it's supposed to be. So I don't want to just go through the motions of being a good wife or a good mother. I want to be the person that finds joy in being your wife and in being a good mother and in serving you and serving our family and loving on you guys the way that you feel love.
Yeah, and it's the difference between acting the way you would if you had integrity and being the person that has integrity. And sometimes you've got to just act that way and just do the thing you know you ought to do, and that affects who you are, but it's out of the overflow of the heart that the mouth speaks, right? So if we are the person we should be, then the way we act will come naturally. If you ever tried to pretend to be something, it's actually tiring. If you just let God change who you are, if you are asking Him to make you more the person you know He made you to be, it'll change the way you act. And the way that I serve and sacrifice for and love her should come out of who I am and not just me acting a certain way, because that will get tiring. We've all tried to do it. We're not perfect at this, but we're learning. We found that who we are being matters more than what we are doing.
Being matters more than doing.
True story.
Those are our 7 tips for a successful marriage.
And we're still learning, so we're going to come up with more as time goes on. But let us know what you think.
What's your top tip for a successful marriage? Let us know in the comments down below. Subscribe down below if you aren't already, and until we meet again, don't forget,
Life is better together.